All right. Good evening and good night, and welcome to the It's Your Perspective Talk Show. It is Tuesday, July 17th, 2018, about 8:03 p.m. Just want to say real quick that this is the It's Your Perspective Talk Show every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Link us up tonight on Facebook. You can reach us through our It's Your Perspective Talk Show Facebook page. We do have a telephone number as well. You can reach our guest tonight, because we do have a guest in the studio, at 340-201-9005. You can also call or text. But what seems to be working lately, too, is people have been posting their questions through the Facebook Live feed there. Big ups to that. We're in the green room here in an undisclosed location here in St. Croix, Virgin Islands. I want to give a quick shout out to all our past guests. Thanks for being on our show. What else we got? Want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Maggie's Party Decor, right here in St. Croix, Virgin Islands, and also Supersonic Computer Services. That's the crew that helps us out with our IT stuff here. What else we got? And also, I got to give a quick shout out to CHS class in 1982. Big ups to that crowd here. Our guest tonight tells me that she is from CHS class of 1984. We have Alicia Barnes in the studio. Wave to the crowd. You are streaming out right now worldwide.
Hi.
I like to say worldwide, but most importantly, hopefully the folks here in the Virgin Islands, everybody, man, woman, child, is tuned in and listening to our stream tonight.
Yes.
So how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming into the studio and reaching out to us.
Me.
You're running for office. You're running as a Democrat?
I'm running as a Democrat for a seat in the 33rd legislature. That's correct.
Okay. So one of the things as we roll out here, I like to ask our guests is, any whatever they come, whether it's music or whatever, when did this come to you that you wanted to run for office? What were you doing on the beach? Were you having dinner? Were you in church? And when did you get that divine intervention that said, run?
Okay, so I've had that unction in me for a very long time, probably all my life.
Oh, really? Okay.
Always knowing that I would be involved in the process in some shape, form, or fashion. Definitely not a spectator when it comes to civic duty and responsibility.
Okay.
I've always been involved. I've remained engaged. As relates to making the decision to run, for me, it was always a matter of not if, but when.
Okay.
And what was the catalyst for me was just the hurricanes, Irma and Maria. And just to me, the collective suffering that I saw, collective suffering that I experienced, and recognizing that no one person can do it all. But if you do have insight and skill sets that can be utilized to assist your community, that you should, step forward to do so.
To help out.
So Irma Maria really were the catalyst for me that really made me make the decision to actually get involved at this present time.
Okay. So I guess you've been sort of canvassing around the neighborhood. What are the folks saying to you?
Well, I started this campaign early. I started in January. I'm one of the first persons out the gate, and we've kept a steady pace.
Okay.
The reason I wanted to get started early was because before I put my platform together, I wanted to have the opportunity to speak to as many people and cross sections of the community as I possibly could.
Okay.
To be able to, first of all, understand what the priorities were in terms of community interest.
Okay.
A lot of times as candidates, we like to tell the community what we're going to recommend, promise, which I've shied away from making promises, and we don't take the time to listen.
Okay.
So I took like that first, month, 2 months rather, a month and a half to really listen to just as many people as I could possibly speak to in terms of what they're feeling, what they're sensing, what's important to them, where are we doing well as a community, where can we do better. And with the ideas that I had of my own, I utilized that to form my platform and make it responsive and relevant
Okay.
to what the community needs are.
Okay, but when you were out and about knocking on doors, I
Right.
mean, what were they saying to you? You know, were they saying it was the GRS, was it WAPA?
Definitely,
I mean, what were they saying?
GRS.
Okay.
GRS was a big issue. Healthcare.
Okay,
Access to for disabled members in our community.
okay,
The broken mental health system.
okay,
Huge. Economic issues, and everyone says jobs, but persons were more so concerned about just an environment for growth where they feel that they have opportunities to do better and thrive.
Okay.
That was the concern coming especially from the young people.
Okay.
That we're not just looking for a job.
Yeah.
We want to be able to know that our community embraces our ideas and that we have a platform for growth.
Okay.
So that was also very much coming from, the community. Something that really, really struck me, and it really was not on the forefront of my mind, and I have to be honest, the Commission on Youth.
okay,
A lot of young men,
Uh-huh.
Black and Hispanic men, spoke to me about the need to bring back the Commission on Youth. A lot of young Black and Hispanic men who were incarcerated or may have had some issue with the system spoke to me candidly about what the Commission on Youth did
Okay.
for a community back in our time and the void that was left when the Commission on Youth was dismantled.
okay. So I never heard of this. So when was this?
So the Commission on Youth was a government agency specifically geared to youth-related issues.
Okay.
It wasn't just recreation and sports, but that was a component.
Okay.
But there was a high component of academic excellence.
Okay.
In terms of job placement and training. So it was an empowerment agency for young people. It was where during the summer we got our summer jobs so we could buy our little school clothes
School
or
for the next
what
year.
exactly. But also it was where during the year you had a recreational component where Saint Fan would play Mambiju, Mambiju would play Safarali, Safarali would play Shabbat. So we all moved around and everyone knew each other.
Okay.
To be involved in those recreational outlet activities, you had to maintain a certain degree of academic excellence.
Okay.
So it was all intertwined. And then you had the older young men somewhat mentoring the younger men from the community though.
Okay.
And so it was just a collective of young minds and a targeted effort
Okay.
towards empowering young people, preventing delinquency,
Okay.
ensuring that we graduated from high school, ensuring that we maximize our potential.
Okay.
And what is heartbreaking to me, I had a long discussion with a man in our community that was very active in the Commission on Youth, and
So this is ended now?
the Commission on Youth was dismantled. I think I was in college at the time, so that was between 84 and 88. I think during the Farrelly administration,
Okay.
during Farrelly's reorganization, the Commission on Youth was no longer a standalone entity.
Okay.
But its functions were decentralized in different government departments
That
and
still kinda
agencies,
exists now?
like education,
I gotcha.
human services, housing, parks, and recreation. But to me, it has not worked.
Okay.
And so to me, we need to come back and centralize it instead of having these decentralized functions throughout government. Have a centralized government agency dealing with youth issues.
So when you say agency, you're talking about like, so we have human services and so it'll be a youth commission as a.
It could be under the office of the governor. The enabling legislation already exists.
Okay.
I'm sure it can be tweaked to make it more relevant
Okay.
to today's environment.
Okay.
We can also tweak the programs
Okay.
so the programs can be more relevant
Okay.
to address the issues that our young people are now being confronted with.
But so why did they stop it? I mean, if it was going so well, I'm
Well, again, I can't
I don't know if it
speak
was, like, a
to the
money
thought.
issue.
No, I believe it was more so a government reorganization.
Okay.
During that time, the Governor Farley at the time came in, and he had his vision.
Yes.
For the manner in which he wanted to see the executive branch structured.
Yes.
Excuse me, and he wanted. Certain,
Yeah,
functions,
plan, yeah.
centralized, certain groups clustered together.
Okay.
I don't know the thinking, but definitely it was no longer a standalone entity
Okay.
geared towards youth issues.
Okay.
Well, I believe that in times of crises, which we're experiencing right now with our young population, there needs to be a targeted effort to address the crises.
Okay.
So I believe the Commission on Youth is one of those prongs
Okay.
that we need to begin to address in a targeted and systematic manner the issues that we're facing in our community.
okay.
This month, I had a funeral today, I have a funeral tomorrow, and I have a funeral on the 31st.
Okay. Wow.
All gun violence.
Yeah. Wow.
We need to address these issues.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. All here in St. Croix?
All here in St.
Yeah, that's
Croix.
a lot. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a lot. Yeah, I saw the crowd today
Right.
when I was cruising down that way earlier today. I didn't know who it was, but people looked very kind of sad,
Yeah,
It's sad.
yeah.
Sad.
So it's hitting home. It's hitting
Okay.
home in a very
So
close way.
how do we deal with that? People say they don't make guns here. That,
Correct.
There's some talk about it being brought in on
Right.
boats and this kind of thing. How do we deal with that?
Well, I just truly believe that in order to deal with a situation, we have to first acknowledge that the situation exists. And the silence is deafening as it relates to.
It's Your Perspective Talk Show. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, I guess not. Call back.
Yeah, the silence is deafening as it relates to the proliferation of guns on our streets. And you are correct. We don't own the boats, the planes, the docks, the runways, or whatever infrastructure is in place to bring these guns in here. We also do not control our borders.
Yes.
That's under U.S. Customs and Border Protection, right?
Yes.
So we need to begin to have a dialogue in earnest.
Okay.
If we are serious about protecting our borders.
Yeah.
And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I am a realist. And in my estimation, there are some deficiencies, there's some gaps.
Okay.
Whether by design, we can have that discussion.
Okay.
But I do know that we need to do a better job with protecting our borders.
Okay.
So basically, we need to start that dialogue.
Okay.
Let's begin there.
Okay. So I know we kind of touched on a few things here, but let's get more into like what your platform is. What do you, when you get in there? What are like the 2 or 3 things that you're going to really try to target right away? If you make it in office.
Well, one of the key things that I have continuously stressed throughout my campaign is the legislature reaffirming its position as the first branch of government.
Okay.
Now, I continuously say that I am not criticizing the 32nd, the 31st, the 30th, even the 20th legislature. That's not the intent of what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that over a period of time, there seems to have been an erosion on the level of influence and authority that the legislature is exacting on governance.
Okay.
Okay? As the first branch of government, the legislature is responsible for enacting laws, appropriating funds, and creating revenue-generating measures. With that requires a certain degree, a significant degree of oversight on the executive branch. But what to me has happened is that the legislature over a period of time has abdicated its role. And so basically, the executive branch sends a budget, you go through budget hearings, you do some minor adjustments, and you stamp it. The executive branch's recommended spending plan is just that, a recommendation. It is up to the legislature to create a budget based on specific priorities, based on a specific vision for the territory.
For the department
So
there.
for me, the first thing is, let's begin there. Let's begin understanding who we are as a body.
Okay.
So you have to first have the identity issue resolved.
Okay.
And then the purpose issue is the mandate. So I would like to at least begin to have that dialogue where when you recognize what your role is, then you ensure that you have the tools to
make the change.
exactly.
Okay.
So that's one of the big things for me.
Okay.
Just in terms of a paradigm shift
Okay.
in the manner in which the legislature's stance has
Okay.
been over a period of time.
So let me ask you. So were you commissioner of DPNR?
I was,
So
yes.
you had to testify. So
Several times.
So I guess you saw, being that you were there, some of what you're mentioning here in your conversation, and maybe lack of or could be done better in the process is sort of what you're saying. I mean,
Well, over the years, I've also served as director of the energy office. So throughout my career,
Okay.
I have been before the body on numerous occasions. I think maybe for the past 20 years.
oh really? Okay.
Yeah.
So and the reason I say DPNR because when I came back in
That's the most
2008,
recent.
yeah, 2008, you were kind of involved.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. And so the observation has been that basically there's a limitation that the senator has when a head of an agency comes before them with all this information, and there is no way that they can independently fact check prior to the agency head being before them if in fact the numbers are correct.
The numbers are correct. Yeah.
The legislature is relying on the presentation from the executive branch to tell them. Now, it's like you having your household and your children are telling you, yes, you're responsible for paying the bills, but I'm going to tell you which bill to pay when. As simple as it may sound,
Yeah.
that's what's happening.
Yeah. That's not how it works.
The legislature is to control the purse strings.
Okay.
So I just think that we need to get some fundamentals
Okay.
back in place.
Okay.
And it begins with a certain assertion
Okay.
of your authority
Okay.
and
Okay.
your mandates. So that's a big thing for me.
Okay.
And then in terms of specific platform points, let's talk about economic development. When people talk about economic development, it's always about attracting new businesses to our shores. It's always about, being business friendly. And I agree with all of that. But we have businesses here. We have businesses here that are doing okay. And they can do a whole lot better if we create an environment for growth for them.
Okay.
We have a lot of local businesses that are vested in this community, that hire locally, that are homegrown, that we need to be able to create an environment for them to grow.
What would you do though? I mean, how would you sort of put that together?
Well, one of the things I'm looking at, and I would like to discuss further once I'm successful to be a member of the 33rd legislature, we significantly need insurance and banking reform.
Okay.
Okay, the insurance debacle is what got me here. Okay, but we need banking reform.
Okay.
We need banking reform that truly addresses community empowerment and reinvestment.
Okay.
We need to ensure that our small businesses have access to working capital. We need to ensure that you don't have to wait to have a whole build out to get your business license. That you can get your business license so that you can open your bank account and begin to pursue working capital to have your occupancy issues resolved
Yeah.
in terms of your build out.
Yeah.
Right now, they're one and the same. You're having a fire marshal inspection, all of these things for your business license as a startup when you don't have anything to start off with.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it just doesn't make
The whole
any
process,
sense.
yeah, needs to be sort of adjusted.
You know, when I was at DPNR, we looked at certain amendments to the zoning code to ensure that certain businesses can be home-based. A lot of times, you can do a lot of things at home, but because of the nature of the business, you may be restricted based on that specific zoning designation or the zoning district. We need to look at relaxing some of those to reduce overhead.
Okay.
Because if you can work from home, that's half of the battle won.
Yes.
For those of us that do consulting, we work from home, we work from our cars, you know, and so the overhead is significantly reduced.
Yeah.
So we need to look at creative ways to incentivize economic activity locally. I truly believe in growing from within.
Okay.
So when I talk about economic development, it's creating an environment for the local resources that we have here to grow. It's also to attract businesses, but we need to attract businesses, yes, but we need to firm up the local businesses that we have here so that when we attract businesses, our local businesses can also benefit from the opportunities of the larger businesses that may be coming.
Okay, so we got our first question here, popped up on Facebook here. So someone is asking, what is your vote on the current proposal to reopen the refinery? So I guess they're asking, are you for it, against it?
What is my vote?
Yeah, what is your vote on the current proposal?
Or what is my position on the reopening of the refinery?
Please break down your answer as it relates to the GERS component of the deal and the environment.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw it, what was floating around on Facebook was the actual agreement.
Yes.
It was like 100 and something pages, and I wanted to read it, but, you know, I just...
Well, reading it is good. Having an appropriate analysis is even better.
Okay.
And then taking that analysis and assessing the implications is best.
Okay.
And what I feel is that we constantly sort of rush these far-reaching, far-impacting, comprehensive initiatives for whatever reason, and I'm not going to get into that. Short answer, I am definitely a proponent of development and economic development.
Okay.
As it relates to the refinery, I see it as a positive step if done correctly.
Okay.
We need to ensure that the environmental permits, the environmental monitoring, and all of the environmental compliance issues are adhered to.
Okay.
That they're addressed, and that we have the proper oversight, that DPNR is appropriately staffed to be able to do their and fulfill their regulatory mandate.
Okay.
As it relates to the GERS component, we all know that there was a need for an infusion of cash into GERS. This is some, I think, 300 million or 30 million over a period of 10 years. In aggregate, it sounds great, but it is just one step towards correcting the GERS issue.
Okay.
So I don't want any of us to think that this is the catch-all savior. GERS still needs to revisit its investment strategy. There still needs to be some tweaking of its administrative functions, things of that nature in terms of leveraging their assets instead of liquidating. But I am definitely a proponent in terms of looking at the infusion of immediate cash to at least address the insolvency issue in the short term.
Okay.
But we don't want to get duped into thinking that this is the savior and the catch-all.
Yeah.
As far as ramping up and bringing the refinery back online, there are, to me, workforce development issues that really need to be considered. To me, if in fact we knew that we were moving in this direction, the University of the Virgin Islands should have ramped up their process tech program to ensure that we have a skilled workforce to occupy those jobs. We should have ensured that the vocational school was meeting the national certification requirement standards so that we won't hear we don't have the skilled workforce.
The local force, yeah.
Exactly. So I am definitely excited about the prospect of additional economic activity on St. Croix. But again, economic activity for whom? Who is really going to benefit here? If in fact we have not been creating the work pool and developing our work pool to be able to capitalize and maximize on this opportunity that is before us.
Yeah.
So it gives me pause, because I am seeing where we're going to hear the same thing. Oh, we have to import with workers because we don't have the skilled workforce. We need to be able to do better in having a vision and planning.
Okay.
So short answer, I am not against the actual restarting of refining on the South Shore if done in an environmentally sound manner.
Safe way.
And if it's done in a way where the local population, our young Black and Hispanic men, many who just graduated from high school, they're not all going to college, vocational school, or the military, will have an opportunity to be gainfully employed, where they can grow, where they can be trained, and where they can learn.
Okay. Okay. Sounds fair to me. Let's talk about healthcare. That's another thing here you have on your on your brochure here. Healthcare is near and dear to me, and in the sense of getting just more services here. What's your position on that? I mean, do you see that something that you can get done at least get started on in the first couple of years?
We really need to address our healthcare issues. I think we're at a standard that's third world, and it's deplorable being a part of the richest nation in the world, the United States of America. It's embarrassing and it's unacceptable. Let's just start there. Many of us have elderly parents. My father has since passed, but he was a veteran. We would have to travel to the VA hospital in Puerto Rico for him to get his care. When he was hospitalized at the Veterans Hospital in Miami. These things are unacceptable for our elderly population, those who have served their country, to be able to be treated to me in such an inhumane manner as to have to travel when they're sick to get better.
Yes.
I see a fundamental problem with that.
Okay.
Many people go to the Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic. And I did hear a senator speak to the fact that they started a dialogue with some of these private entities to see if they can consider some sort of partnership with our local hospitals.
Okay.
I am very much a proponent of having a public-private partnership where the government of the Virgin Islands maintains a majority shareholder. Okay, but we definitely need to look at bringing entities in specialty areas, specialty services, to be able to partner with our hospitals to provide the level of care that we need in this community. And it's not just in the area of just medical health care. We're talking about issues with Alzheimer's, dementia, mental health. Many of us have ailing parents. I have several friends that's dealing with parents who are in the early stages of dementia or Alzheimer's, and just the challenges and the lack of resources and the unavailability rather of a support system to even guide you through the process. Mental health, broken, deplorable. We had another issue with a mentally ill person this past weekend, and the saga continues. We need to really seriously begin to address these issues. Now, I've done my research, and as I continue to prepare myself to serve, I just don't want to show up and just say, oh, let's start looking into this, looking into that. So we've already started to do a lot of research in a lot of areas.
Okay.
One of them is we've quantified the amounts of monies that are spent off island to house our mentally ill residents.
Okay.
We have a lot of chronic mentally ill cases, and they're housed off island. And we have 3 departments: Department of Education that have sent people away, Department of Human Services, and Department of Health. And when you take the monies that's being spent on an annual basis in aggregate, it takes a fraction of that amount to build a facility locally, equip it, and staff it.
Okay.
Even if we were to use creative financing, where we can demonstrate that you, as a private entity, you can come in and build this facility, and we can finance that debt through the cost savings from those monies that we have been spending outside. So I just don't think that the issues that we have are insurmountable.
Okay.
The challenges and the problems are not without solution, and that's why we've been running an issue-based solutions-oriented campaign, because the solutions are there. We are just failing to look within.
Okay.
The answers that we have are right here.
Right here, yeah.
We just need to look harder
Okay.
and think outside the box.
Is that to do something like that? Would that be funded through grants, or when you talk about the private-public sector, sort of paying to have this establishment in place?
Right.
I mean, do you think this would be like millions or hundreds of millions of dollars to sort of operate?
Well,
where do we get that kind of money from?
Okay, so if we think in terms of the Medicaid monies that we're already losing, that's coming out of the territory to be able to pay for these services off island, coupled with the actual monies from the general fund or federal grant funds that we're using. All of those monies are being spent outside of the territory to take care of our residents.
Okay.
I believe our residents would be taken care of in a better fashion right here at home. So again, you can look at the funds that are already being expended and spend those monies more efficiently.
Locally.
Locally.
I got
yes.
you. So we got another question here. Hold on a second here. So someone is asking here, our neighboring territory of Puerto Rico has submitted a request to Congress to become the 51st state. What are your thoughts about that? What are your thoughts about that, basically, is what they're asking.
I'm going to say this as in the context of the United States Virgin Islands. We need to be able to firm up our identity issues as to who we see and define ourselves as a people. And then we need to begin to have the self-determination discussion after that.
Okay.
We haven't even decided who we want to define ourselves as.
Okay.
So our identity issues are limiting exactly how we want to move forward with self-determination. So for me, the statehood discussion, Puerto Rico has a better model of national pride than we do here in the United States Virgin Islands.
Okay.
Whether you're a black Puerto Rican, whether you're a white Puerto Rican, whether you are Indian Puerto Rican, which a Puerto Rican, someone told me the definition is a combination of black, of African, Indian, and European. However you may view yourself racially, that's one thing. But ethnically, they see themselves as Puerto Rican.
Okay.
And that is where you begin to address the issue of national pride.
Okay.
We need to begin to make that determination
Okay.
for ourselves as a people.
Okay.
And then start our discussion on self-determination, whether it's statehood, whether it's independence, whether it's status quo. It all has to grow out of our self-identity,
Okay.
which I don't think we have addressed
We have addressed that.
in earnest yet.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about that, but I don't know that any final decisions have been made. What about the hospital? I'm a Facebook junkie, and so there was somebody there, one of my Facebook friends, I don't know who this young lady is, but she was sort of venting about her long stay in the ER. And it just seemed, and then I think they were having some problems too with the AC there, and so it was hot. And so what are your thoughts on getting the hospital a bit more functional? I always get a little, worried deeper, when they talk about the hospital closing, because it's not like we have another one around the corner that can pick up the load. So,
Right.
and few nurses. I know there's a very small population there, but what are your thoughts on just getting the hospital, functioning properly again?
Well, I have two thoughts. One would be what I said initially about we really need to think in terms of public-private partnership with a private healthcare provider partnering with our local hospitals to be able to provide the resources to improve our
The services, yeah.
that we presently have.
Okay.
That's one. The other thing that I would say as it relates to what you said about the long wait. I worked in the Water and Power Authority for a number of years. I was the environmental manager there. I also worked at Hovick. And there's something called process technology and process operations. And process operations is not just limited to refining. It is a systematic method to executing tasks. And so I believe that when it comes to the delivery of services, be it the emergency room, be it DPNR, be it the Department of Education, you have to think in terms of process efficiencies.
Okay.
You have to systematically and in a scientific manner. That's why I'm thankful for my science background, because it helps you to think methodically.
Yes.
And you have to be able to structure the delivery, the tasks in a way that you can efficiently deliver the services. I don't believe that there's been a process flow study done
Okay.
of the ER. Let's begin there and start a process flow study to see the most efficient use of the resources that you have to deliver services more effectively
Okay.
to the citizens.
Okay.
So we need to think in terms of doing a process flow study to ensure that we meet our targets.
Okay. Any thoughts on maybe a new hospital?
Well, of course, we need to improve our infrastructure, not just our hospitals, our schools, our roads, and we need to build facilities that are applicable to the climate that we're in. All of these AC structure, all these, we have all these HVAC issues because we're not building in a manner that's, that complements the climate that we live in.
Okay.
So I really believe that we definitely need new hospital, healthcare facilities.
Okay.
I mean, if that's been stated. We need new schools. Our infrastructure is crumbling at its seams, or crumbling.
Okay.
And so we definitely need improvements in all of those areas. But again, it's to prioritize them. And everything can happen overnight.
Yes.
So until we get to where we want to go, we have to be able to have some solutions as we work our way to where we want to be.
Go.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's jump back to economic development. So I know you talk about the small businesses here, at least giving them a shot, an opportunity to sort of grow.
Right.
But we have this group here called EDA, and I guess their task is to go out and get, I guess, major companies
Right.
to come here. I mean, are you in favor of that, or is that sort of something that, doesn't make sense? Or what are your thoughts on that?
In concept, it makes perfect sense.
Okay.
In execution, I see deficiencies.
Okay.
And I was the Assistant Chief Executive Officer at the EDA.
Okay.
Responsible for marketing the tax incentive program to
Okay.
attract said companies.
Okay.
So I'm very familiar with the intent.
Okay.
Again, when we talk about community reinvestment and empowerment, we cannot market the Virgin Islands to attract certain types of businesses without, on the other end, developing the workforce to be able to be employed in these businesses. And so a lot of times you would find that these companies would request waivers for the employment requirements, waivers to ramp up because of the inability to access certain skill sets within the job market that we have here.
Okay.
So I truly believe the intent, the enabling legislation,
Okay.
I believe that that is all sound. Where I see it being flawed is where we're not thinking in terms of the comprehensive development that is needed to make that program truly do what it's designed to do. And it goes back to what I say in my platform. We need to approach economic development comprehensively and not in this siloed fashion.
Okay.
Where, I was speaking to one of my colleagues that has a specific client, and that client provides a product that is linked to certain economic benefits to the government of the Virgin Islands. But you have another agency that's holding up their repairs, not understanding that the quicker this company can get back online is the quicker they can ramp up production to be able to meet those economic targets.
Yes.
So if the dialogue isn't happening, if someone in agency X doesn't understand how their action or lack thereof is adversely impacting something
It's
else
affecting
over
the
here,
process. Yeah.
then what's the point? And so I believe what we have here, we have a lot of good things, but it's all disconnected because no one has recognized that economic development is interrelated
Okay.
and has to be approached comprehensively.
Okay. The hot topic that floats around here, everywhere you go, is reapportionment. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, for me, let me just say, for me, I think that we should do less senators, take it down to 11, and we should lower the salary. What are your thoughts?
Well, I definitely feel that we need to restructure government in its entirety.
Okay.
I am a proponent of re-engineering government.
Okay.
I believe, because of my science background and training, in working smarter, not harder.
Okay.
So I definitely feel that in not just the legislature and not just with the structure of the Senate, but throughout government, especially with the information age that is before us, we could do things a lot differently.
A lot more efficient.
Okay, and a lot more efficiently.
Yeah.
So let me just put that out there. Now, as it relates to the reapportionment of initiative, I have gone on record as supporting it. And let me tell you my response, or the way I view it in my mind.
Okay.
And I've read the initiative, and the component of it, there's several components of it, because it also speaks to the allotments that the senators would receive, the level of allotment based on whether you are a district senator, an at-large senator, whether you are Senate president, whether you chair a committee. So it's well thought out. It's not a willy-nilly it's not a willy-nilly initiative.
Okay.
I would caution everyone that we not make the perfect be the enemy of the good. Okay, and I think the initiative is good. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. I feel that when you give, in this Republican form of government, and this is what we need to understand, the United States of America is a republic. We have a Republican form of government.
Government, yes.
It's based on representation.
Yes.
So when I give you my vote and you are elected, I am in essence giving you my proxy to vote on my behalf. Right? So to me, the initiative provides a greater degree of accountability for that proxy.
Okay.
And so we don't really understand what we're doing when we are really saying to someone, I'm electing you to represent me. That is literally what you're doing. So that's why at times this government by referendum to me is hilarious,
Okay.
because to me it's inconsistent with the form of government that we have, because we have already chosen persons based on a specific criteria, based on their track record and performance, based on their character and integrity to represent us. So then we have told them, I trust you to vote on my behalf. Vote in my best interests, right? I'm giving you my proxy. So then I should be able to hold you directly accountable since you were given my proxy. And that's why I feel that the Reapportionment Initiative creates a greater degree of accountability that is needed in a Republican form of government.
Okay. So you mentioned a key word there, accountability. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? A lot of people seem to think that, the government just sort of unaccountable for their actions, and that needs to be tightened up. And you seem to feel that a change with the reapportionment would help?
I believe it's a step in the right direction.
Okay.
And I believe that there is an awakening of the community. I believe there's a significant degree of dissatisfaction. And with that, we always hear that innovation, the mother of invention, but I believe that where we are right now in Virgin Islands history, specifically St. Croix, we are at a point where we are demanding more, and we are holding our elected officials and our government leaders accountable to do the task that they swore that they would do when they took the oath of office.
Yeah.
And so the expectation is there that you are going to represent me in a manner in which I am worthy. And so I truly believe, yes, it's a step in the right direction.
Okay. So it's about 8:52. If I can just run down a couple things here that we didn't talk about yet that are on my list here. One of the first things is tourism. And, getting more ships here, building a nice hotel somewhere so that we can have more planes coming here. The overnight stays is where they say they make the money at. What are your thoughts on that? New hotel, do you think we need a new hotel? Or a lot of, some people say, we got enough rooms, but I think new is good.
No,
New
I
is good, new is
definitely,
exciting,
Yeah, we definitely can do with more hotel rooms on St. Croix. Definitely, that's a no-brainer. Now, how do we want to market St. Croix? St. Croix is unique and has a flavor of its own, unlike anywhere else in the world. I mean, I was telling my daughter today, I just love being a Crucian. I love living on St. Croix. This place is awesome. From our culture, the cuisine, the people, who and how we are, the generosity, the scenery, the history. It's just a
There's
great,
a lot.
it's so much to take in.
Yeah, there's a lot to
And, we need to look at, I know everyone loves the idea of 5 cruise ships in the harbor, and you see it across this way, and you look at it like, that could be us. That could be us, but we could be so much more because we have so much more to offer here on St. Croix. And when you think in terms of the type of tourists that we want to attract, and the tourists that would spend real dollars and invest in the community, we can market to long-term tourists that would stay, on a family vacation for, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Not just a couple of days, buying a couple of trinkets and going back on a boat. So, I mean, I think that we really need to look at the assets that we have here and work our assets. I don't believe we're working our assets. We're just trying to mimic
Okay.
what we see maybe working elsewhere based on what based on the resources that somewhere else may have. But I truly don't believe that we have really marketed the great assets that St. Croix has.
Okay. So one of the things that I thought about after our last show, when we talked to a few of the candidates, when you talk about market St. Croix, I mean, when you say market, I mean, are you going to say, come to St. Croix, we are the home of I don't know, something. I mean, I'm just trying to understand it. So,
Well,
how is St. Thomas marketed?
Well, when you, in marketing, you always have to identify your target audience, and then you have your target strategy. And the target audience and your target strategy would be based on the assets and the resources that you are trying to use to lure persons to a specific destination or to buy a specific product.
Okay.
So what we need to do, we need to truly identify the resources that we have here and target specific audiences for that. I mean, a big market is the historically black colleges and universities, their alumni associations, the sororities, the fraternities. They have, annual conferences, they have cluster meetings, so we need to be able to think outside the box and think of what I would call the accidental tourist. It's like you're a tourist by virtue of the fact that you have to travel for this specific activity, but it's not really a vacation.
Okay.
But then you get here and you realize, like, wait a minute, many persons from FEMA have said to me, oh my goodness, we are going to be back here for every Christmas festival. We love it. We never knew this existed. I mean, it's better than anything we've ever experienced. So you capture persons here for a specific function, but when they get here,
That's when you grab them.
yeah. So we need to have a strategy in place that would be able to look at the resources, the assets that St. Croix has. I mean, St. Croix, and I'm happy that the Department of Tourism is highlighting all of the like making it like a foodie destination. We have great cuisine here. I mean, you can go from Panchita in Gallows Bay to Wanda in LBJ to Chicken Shack to El Flamboyant. I mean, then you could go to Galangal. So, I mean, you cover the gamut. You could go over in La Valley to Sylvie's. So, I mean, when this is like a foodie's haven, I am so sorry that what was my favorite guy, the foodie on CNN.
Oh, the guy that
Anthony Bourdain.
Yes.
I mean, I really would always look at his show and come to St. Croix, Anthony.
Yeah.
You would
He
love
never
it.
he never came here.
I
right?
I think he went to Trinidad.
Okay.
But I don't, if he came, I would have known.
Okay.
Because I just really, I loved his show.
Okay.
And so to me, if he were to have discovered St. Croix, I don't believe he would have left. Because you get something of you get everything here.
Everything
you get
here.
everything here. Yeah.
Okay. Let's roll on here real quick. Let's talk a little bit more in specific about education and the Department of Education. One of the things that, I don't know, a lot of people seem to think that is that, I guess, the upper levels of that department is a little heavy, and that you can chop off a few things here and there and use that money for something else.
I mean, Department of Education to me has grown into, it's like a government unto itself to me.
And it's still got the biggest
the
budget.
layers of, you have state, you have district. I mean, it just seems so layered and so bureaucratic. I just don't get how you can cut through all of that to get to what you're supposed to be doing, educating our children.
Yeah.
So for me, I really, just some basic things when we speak about national pride, civic education, knowing who we are as a people, knowing the names of the estates, understanding who our local heroes and sheroes are, understanding that as a people we were emancipated. The enslaved Africans, our forefathers, were emancipated some 15 years prior to our brothers and sisters in the mainland. These types of things need to be communicated and ram down the psyche of our children, for our children to understand who we are.
Okay.
You understand? And the greatness that reside on the inside of us. So for me, education needs to cut through all of, and I can't even, I just tried not to be one of those candidates that the youths are our future, education is the key, rhetoric.
Okay.
My thing is, let's come with some substantive things that we see that we need to have done to create the type of future that we want for these Virgin Islands.
Okay.
And the future would be in our children.
Okay.
And if we instill in them, that knowing of who we are as a people, let's begin there. Then you begin to feel you're worthy. You begin to know that you have a purpose. You begin to value yourself. You respect yourself.
Okay.
And on and on. So for me, education just needs to get back to the basic
Okay.
of educating our children.
Well-
How we do that?
Okay. What about teachers' pay? I heard on some show today they were talking about giving raises to the teachers, but not the support staff. And so I thought, well, that, could cause some confusion.
Right.
But I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, and I heard the commissioner talking. I think we still need more teachers here. A lot
Right.
of teachers have left.
Right.
We need more.
One of the things I heard about civic education is that there was legislation that was passed mandating that civics be taught in the schools. However, now there's an issue with teachers to teach the course. That's what I heard a
Okay.
couple of days ago. So I'm
Okay.
sure we still have teacher shortages
Okay.
in some instances.
So you're also in favor too of having a class called VI History? Definitely.
There is VI history from my understanding.
Okay.
There is VI history. I think that we need to have a civic component, government.
Okay.
Where students understand their roles as citizens, their rights and responsibilities for community engagement.
Okay. Okay, so let's jump on here real quick. Let's talk about WAPA. WAPA is just going to raise everybody's bills, $16 here, I think starting this month or next month.
But you asked a question before. What was the question before WAPA? Teachers pay.
Yeah, teachers pay, I mean,
Yeah, I believe if there needs to be, I think teachers are owed retroactive.
Yes.
We need to look at the opportunities that's afforded to us through the Stafford Act and the emergency funds that we're getting, not to pay the teachers. Of course not. That's not an allowable use. However, we can offset some general fund obligations, and maybe that can make some monies available to address some past obligations.
Okay.
Again, it's just in the creative use of the mind
Okay.
and the resources.
okay. WAPA and, renewable energy and high WAPA bills and, how do we get a handle on that?
Well, okay,
'Cause I
so
still hear horror stories every day about people still getting these huge bills and, how am I going to pay this?
well, as I mentioned years ago, I was the director of the energy office, and we spoke about diversifying the Virgin Islands energy portfolio more than 20 years ago, to have dispatchable energy, to be able to have renewable energy, and to just have a diversified portfolio to move away from fossil fuel, diesel. And WAPA has made some significant strides in that direction. They did a conversion of some of their units from diesel to propane. Propane is a cleaner burning fuel, and it also has a lower, a smaller carbon footprint. So it's a cleaner burning fuel, more efficient.
Less smog in the air.
Exactly. So WAPA has also diversified with the solar farms that you have seen. They have since moved to more efficient, smaller reciprocating engines to be able to produce energy more efficiently. And so there's something in the generation of electricity that is called, you have to have generation efficiencies. So where I believe that there were deficiencies in WAPA and they're moving to correct them would be the actual power generation mix. What unit is being run when at what specific load. So the actual generation efficiencies is something that's a key component that requires specific type of engineering skills to ensure that the plant generation is done in a way that's efficient. Again, it goes back to process technology, and I don't mean to get technical, but this is like my area. So if I
No, it makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, in addition to that diversifying the portfolio, you have to look at the actual generating efficiencies to ensure that you get the maximum output for the least amount of input.
Okay. So we have the solar panels here, and what about other types like there's wind. I see things on Facebook. Energy is being created from wind, and then there's waves. I mean, can we get into some of that kind of technology here?
With wind, wind energy is intermittent. It's not what you call dispatchable, where it's directly available. Wind energy, it's a viable renewable energy source. Again, the feasibility studies, I'm not sure the amount of megawatts we would be able to generate that would be impactful.
Okay.
So again, in the states where you have a grid system, you can have large wind farms, large solar farms, because, you have a grid that's interconnected. We are insular, so we're also restricted as to the amount of mix that we can put into one system.
Okay.
So again, it's, sometimes I think it's really important to communicate the technical elements of a problem so that persons can understand that it's not as easy as a silver bullet. Because when you do the diversifying of your energy portfolio and you have a fuel mix, you also need to be careful that your system, which is an insular, standalone, isolated system, can handle that mix without trips back to the facility.
Yeah.
So it's a lot that go into play, and it's not as simple as persons may think at times.
Okay. Let me ask you another question here about where did it go here? About the Attorney General. A lot of people seem to feel that he's someone that is appointed by the governor. A lot of people seem to feel that we should vote for the Attorney General. There should be 2 or 3 persons running, and they're campaigning like you are, and we vote for the best person that represent the people. I mean, how do you feel about that? Do you think that should be changed?
I mean, I have not given any significant thought towards whether the pros and cons of an elected attorney general versus
an
appointed attorney general.
Okay.
I would just say in general that we do have a need to re-engineer government.
Okay.
And, I would just leave it at that, because, sometimes when we are in dire straits, everyone is looking for a quick fix, or maybe if we do this, maybe if we do that. I like to look at things comprehensively and then look at the legal infrastructure and framework that we exist in under the Organic Act and see what the allowances are, because we are restricted by the act as well.
Yeah. Okay. What else I got on my list here? One of the last things, voter registration drive. I guess we'll be voting for you.
Yes.
The Democrats on
Yes.
August 4th.
Yes.
And you're number 14. So Have you been doing your due diligence to get people to vote?
Oh my goodness, I have been campaigning since January.
Okay.
Pounding the pavement, knocking on doors, shaking hands, radio ads, radio appearances, events, events of my own, sponsored events, forums, canvassing.
Okay.
Truly asking everyone for their support. I'm number 14 on the ballot. Alicia Barnes. The Barnes for Senate campaign is an issue-based, results, solution-oriented campaign running on the slogan, "Prepared to Serve." I've taken the time to prepare myself to serve, and I'm asking for an opportunity to do so in the 33rd legislature.
Okay. Hopefully that wasn't your end speech there, because I have two more areas to ask you about. Agriculture, we can't forget about that, and how important everybody says it is.
Right.
And why can't we do it in much greater quantity and feed ourselves? And it was very clear that if the hurricane was any worse than it was that we got hit here with in September, that we could have been sort of isolated without any food here.
Right. So one of the things that I have under economic development is an integrated agricultural industry.
Okay.
And when I say integrated, and I know we have initiatives already that started in the elementary schools, but in earnest, we need to be able to provision our restaurants, our hospitals, the prisons, even cruise ships. We need to be able to have, it's one thing to grow the product, but it's another thing to have the end user. So we need to be able to have persons, and entities in place that would be able to receive, to be customers, and where the farmers would be suppliers.
Okay.
So we need to look at an integrated approach. Our supermarkets have to be on board. There has to be a commitment from our major supermarkets. There has to be a commitment from the prison, the hospital, the schools, to be able to deal directly with the farmers, to be the recipient of these organic produce.
Yes.
And the reason it's so important to me is when we look at, as we spoke about earlier, the issues with dementia, Alzheimer's, the mental health crisis that's plaguing us. So much of what we eat, emotional health is linked to stomach health.
Yes.
We need to get back to a more organic, earth-based diet. And we start with organic produce that we can grow right here.
Okay.
But it has to be integrated. Again, it cannot be just a standalone. You have to look at all the systems. How is it going to be supported? How is it going to be sustained? And come up with a sustainable approach towards integrated agriculture. Definitely a proponent of agriculture.
Okay. And it's something that you think you can get rolling on in the first 2 years?
Again, with everything, you make a commitment to give it your best shot. I would be one of 15 senators. I am happy to hear that a lot of the candidates are committed to agriculture as well. So I believe that this go-round, the 33rd legislature, presents a great opportunity for St. Croix.
For things to get better.
Yes.
All right. So our guest tonight is Alicia Barnes. She is number 14. She is a Democrat. Go vote for her on August 4th. That's just like almost 2 weeks away.
2 weeks away or so.
Are you excited?
Very.
Okay.
Very excited.
Okay.
Very
Good
excited.
luck to you. Share with everybody your social media, your telephone number, kind of stuff, if you would like to do that.
Yes, absolutely, and thank you so much for this opportunity to
welcome.
be on your show this evening. It's truly been one of my best. I've really enjoyed this interview.
Okay,
I think
thank
your
you.
questions were insightful and relevant, and so I appreciate the time you took into preparing.
Okay.
It means a lot. And yes, you can hit me up at supporters of AliciaBarnes.com or Barnes for St. Croix, Barnes, let's see here, Put on my glasses. On Facebook, it's Supporters of Alicia Barnes or Barnes for St. Croix. And on the World Wide Web, it's supportersofaliciabarnes.com. You can send me an email, leave me a message. I usually respond in 24 hours. Remember to vote for Alicia Barnes, number 14, on your primary election ballot. I'm prepared to serve.
All right.
Thank you.
You are quite welcome. So I just want to say real quick, this is the It's Your Perspective Talk Show every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 p.m. until. This will do it for us tonight. We'll be back on Thursday with another show. We do have a telephone number, 340-201-9005. We're also streaming live from the VI.com. That's our website. Check us out there. Also, tune into streaming live from the VI.com radio. You can listen to that 24 hours a day on TuneIn, or you can just go directly to our website and type in live radio, and you'll be able to hear the music. So on that note, we're out. You guys have a great weekend. Peace.